family life. So he ended up going to live with my sister's grandfather.
Hello, today I'm with Teresa Borg, who together with her husband Anton Berezin created Lifelike Touring. Lifelike Touring is a production company and it has specialised in touring children's theatre all around Australia, including working with the Wiggles as well as many others. And Teresa will tell us about that and the many other things that she's done during her extraordinary career. Thank you very much, Teresa, for coming along today.
Pleasure.
What I'd like to do is to find out how you got into the business in the first place.
The business of show.
Yes.
I loved it from when I was very little. In fact, I was really lucky. I had grandparents who loved seeing a show, and going out to see shows was part of my life from when I was tiny. I think probably I saw, my granddad was a school principal. I remember going to see their the school concerts from when I was very tiny. I remember being allowed to stop in a shopping centre and watch the panto in the shopping centre from when I was little. And I was desperate to dance and to sing from probably 4 years old.
So there you were at 4 years old, you wanted to do that. How did you get into doing it?
Chiefly playing Mary in the kindergarten nativity play. Okay. First gig. And then I think I probably had some success with that for prep grade 1 and grade 2 as well. I think I was the natural actor in the class. And when I was 7, I started ballet, and I just loved it. I lived for ballet. You know, I was one of those kids who's like, I was at school and I did well at school, but really my life for me was outside of school, going to ballet and playing after school. I started choir when I was probably in grade 5, and then by the time I was in year 10 I was in the local community theatre group, and I got my first gig at the end of year 10 down at the old Alex when they used to do a panto every summer. Okay. And I loved it. It was always what I wanted to do.
So then you went on to study at college, or?
Yes, I went to Melbourne Teachers College, Melbourne CAE it was called at that time, and I think it was absorbed by Melbourne University during my time there. I did get into VCA, but my parents were really not keen for me to, well, they really wanted me to have another string to my bow. Yeah. I'm not sure that it's the same advice as I would give to anybody these days. I think probably nothing's wasted, and the earlier you invest in specialising, the better. But it's worked out well for me. And so I did my teaching degree, and then over the last couple of years of that, concurrently I did opera studio at VCA. So you know, I was always able to earn a living other than by singing, because I could always teach. Yeah,
which is a really good thing to be able to do, and it's a nice profession to have as a fallback.
It is. I loved it. I loved it. I've always loved children, and I love seeing their little faces responding and searching for answers, and helping them find windows of opportunity to express themselves. And yeah, and you know, over time it's proven very useful to think about how people learn, and the ways in which children respond to communication, because it's really helped with my playwriting.
I think that's a real through line for you, because your business has very much been around helping children to come in contact with theatre and to grow and learn and see the opportunities that they can have through watching performance.
Yeah, I think that's true. My husband, though not teacher trained, he has always loved that as well, the idea of opening a world for little people. You know, we used to laugh very regularly about how, even having moved through the business to the point where we weren't necessarily in regular contact with the audience in a shopping centre, we can still go to a meet and greet and see a child greeting Santa Claus or one of the licensed characters that we work with, and it makes us tearful.
That's wonderful.
It makes us tearful to see children enjoying the intersection of fantasy and reality.
So we've now started to talk about the company, the production company. How did you start that production company?
Well, I didn't start it. Anton started it, really. Anton when he first started working when he was at school, always did sales, and as he went through university doing the first few years of his law degree before he ran away to the circus, that's music theatre, he earned money by pulling his friends into ensembles and selling pantomimes and other musical entertainment to shopping centres. And then when we met, we were both jobbing actors and very lucky to be so, always felt privileged to be so, but we realised that probably we weren't ever going to be in a position where we were making a full-time living as performers, and we wanted some sort of security for our family, like good migrant children, I suppose. We had an idea about using the new tool that was the internet at that stage. That was 20 years ago, so it was still cutting edge, which is hard to imagine. But even email, you know, we'd send an email, and if the email didn't format correctly through on the way through to your client, it would come back and they'd say, "I'm worried you have a virus. Please don't send me emails anymore." You know, it was that early in the game. And Anton and I had an idea to set up an entertainment company that was web-based, where people could actually have a real experience, a sale by sample of the entertainer prior to booking them. I spent a whole summer building a website, which was very painstaking because neither of us had graphic design training or any copywriting training, but we built a website that featured a photo of a performer, a little bio, and then included links to either an audio or a video sample, sometimes both. And then we sold the idea of this website to lots of marketing managers in retail centres, and also the corporate market and event managers, and the business really took off from there.
And what you were selling was both the artists, but also pantos and other performances.
Yes.
How did those come into being? Did they exist?
No. Not really. I mean, Anton had written some pantos when he was at university, and sometimes we'd revise them, but usually it was sort of like the anything, anytime idea, like the goodies, and we would go in offering a range of services and saying we can make anything you like, and people would say, "Thank you, I'll have a Santa parade, a Christmas panto, a suite of entertainment, and can you please finish up on Christmas Eve with an elf?" And we would find a way to supply all of those things.
Wow. So you were simultaneously finding artists that could fit into whatever you needed, then selling those artists and concepts, and then creating the shows.
Yes.
And rehearsing them and all of that.
All of that.
Wow.
It seems ridiculous now, but it was great fun, and it was, you know, a huge learning curve, steep learning curve in terms of learning to work with the clients. Not so much for Anton, certainly for me. You know, I came from a place of being receptive rather than expressive with authority, having come from a long tradition of dance, and so, you know, learning to have a conversation with the client was something new. Learning how to work with your peers in a way that is managerial and drives you toward the outcome that is desirable without alienating people. That was another huge learning curve. All of the compliance around running a small business. We hired good people to help us and advise us, and did a lot of reading of government handbooks. It was a huge learning curve, but you know, I wouldn't swap it.
And also things like occupational health and safety, and you're talking about Santas, so you're looking at children check, working with children check, those sorts of things. That's a heck of a lot to take in when really you were a musical theatre performer and a dancer.
Yet again, probably Anton's 2 or 3 years of law and my teacher training was actually very useful because, you know, he had an instinct for things that were legal, and I had a good instinct about what was common sense around children. We came from a place of some information and knowing that we needed to ask questions. Yeah.
So this is a business that I'm imagining has real peaks and troughs. You've got Christmas and all of the time around there where you've got your elves and your Christmas pantos and so on.
We realised that there were lead periods in the year when we needed to stay employed, so we started touring the regions.
And how did that come about? Because you mentioned earlier on that you had licensed characters and shows. How did that happen?
Well, it came first from a very, a 6 degrees of separation connection with the Wiggles. They needed, Anton and I had both sort of come into the same constellation at various times. We had friends in common. The Wiggles needed somebody to manage a tour that was coming to Melbourne, and we did a decent job, and then we came to an arrangement with them that we assisted with the touring of sort of their smaller shows and their licensed characters. And then, that came to a natural end. But over that time, because we had that experience and learnt the parameters around touring a small show, it gave some other clients confidence to bring us their licensed characters. And I feel that the reason that we were, able to maintain these relationships is not just because we sort of understood the parameters of producing these shows in these venues and had that demonstrated experience, but we were also able to bring quality content to the table. So by this time we'd acquired a little bit of experience writing, and I was learning how to direct, and we were collaborative in our process with our clients. Everything, has to go through multiple levels of approval, and we just kept saying yes. We just kept saying yes.
Through the company, you were making work, I imagine, on quite short notice and trying to find performers and so on. So there must have been some pretty hairy moments from time to time. Can you think of any that were particularly exciting?
I can remember a time when the client requested a particular show that was on our Christmas list that hadn't been written yet a week before the gig. That was fun. But I think that what those hairy situations teach you really is how to delegate, how to make the best use of the resources available. And, so from going from a place where you are doing everything, you need to allow other people to have their own voice, and you need to work with your colleagues to a point where you can feel like you can hand over a job, and perhaps not insist that it's done your way, as long as the quality of the outcome is what you want.
So that's something that's quite important to you, is that style of management, of being able to be cooperative and delegate, isn't it?
I think so. It's much more productive to take the low road and the gentle road than to take a dominating position or a position of aggression or insistence. I find that, and also I prefer it. I would prefer to have a relationship of collegiality rather than of dominance.
You spend a lot of time at work, and if you're not having fun, really, what's the point?
Yeah, it's been a big learning curve to really realise that you don't actually have to be the best at everything, and perhaps you're not the best at everything, and that if you allow yourself to see the potential in other people and give them the opportunity to speak up, then the mosaic, the tapestry of collaboration is much richer.
Absolutely.
I think collaboration is actually a skill. And what's interesting is, over the years, is I've realised that as actors, we do usually learn to collaborate. It's something that we're taught either on the deck by our elders who slap us around till we've learnt it, or in theatre school. But what's interesting is that as actors, we don't realise necessarily how much collaboration happens behind a desk, and that we need to transfer those skills of collaboration and realise that even behind a desk, one is rarely a soloist.
Yeah, that's a very good thought. Now, apart from the work that you've done for children, you've also done some productions for adults, some independent theatre productions. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we had a bit of a sweet spot from 2015 to 2017 where we produced Passion by Sondheim, City of Angels, and The Light in the Piazza. And that was fantastic fun. It really gave us an opportunity to once again test ourselves against the years of learning and it was a real stretch opportunity to bring everything we'd learned into the theatre. So all three of those productions we did at the Playhouse with full orchestra. and we brought our colleagues in to collaborate with us. We had a ball.
And you directed one of those pieces?
I did. I directed The Light in the Piazza. And, you know, I'd tested myself out with a couple of adult companies, pro-am things in the couple of previous years, and really enjoyed it. I thought I was up to the job. What I'd learned over the years about creating a picture and drawing out a performance was something I was skilled enough to bring to my peers, as well as to, you know, often with the children's things that we were doing, we were working with very young people straight out of theatre school, and it was my own material, you know, and I'm not pretending to be Sondheim. So,
you've mentioned also that you write. What do you like to write? What sorts of things?
Most of the writing I've done over my time in the business has been writing to spec, which has meant that there's something needs to be made, and so I make it. I've done lots of work in a 20-minute format and also an hour-long format, and mainly for children. And it's been a great way to learn craft because, you know, I've been working under supervision from people from major studios, and they have plenty to say. Plenty to say about how to construct things, putting red line through things, making sure that you adhere to the parameters of an established world. And I'm really grateful that I've had that experienced. So I'm sort of on the verge of working out what I personally would like to write from here. I do love to write for children. You know, they're a very discerning audience, and I think one of the great things about writing for children is that everything needs to be very, very clear. There's no room for anything extraneous or distracting or for tangents that don't necessarily add to the story but just sort of colour it in. And so I love writing for children. I've recently had a book published for children.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was written prior to the acquisition of the business, and one day I came across it and thought I must send that off somewhere, and I was fortunate enough that it was purchased by the first publisher I showed it to.
Oh, wow.
So that's fun. That's a book for sort of 9 to 12-year-olds. It's a very local story. It's written in our dialect. You know, I do love writing in our own dialect. I've got very good at writing in UK and US dialect, but I love writing in our own dialect. I'm at a point in my life now where I have the confidence to say something. You know, I've only really recently come to appreciate the extraordinary gifts of someone like an Alanis Morissette or a Naomi Wolf, or somebody that at a young age has sufficient confidence and vision to have something to say about the world they live in at a young age.
But there's also, I think, a lot to be said for coming into your own at your age now, because you've got so much experience behind you, and what you have to say is quite different to someone who's quite young. Yeah,
and I think perhaps that is an underrepresented demographic. You know, there's still, and really it's in a way, I think it sort of comes to the core of what female-driven storytelling and mature storytelling could be, which is now I'm up to stories of adventure and philosophy and politics in a way that I wasn't when I was young. You know, I see a lot of work by young people and I really enjoy it, and I love working with them. Many of those stories are limited to a very small range of experiences of falling in love and being in school and trying to find a way in a big world. And you know, I guess so much that's classic is from a place of experience, like My Fair Lady or City of Angels, or any of those great pieces of work that take in a whole stack of intergenerational stories.
Yeah, Sondheim is another good example.
I mean, as an adult, I'm interested in complex storytelling, and so I imagine that the audience is. As a general rule, it's sort of common knowledge that female role models in entertainment are sadly missing in TV and film. You know, and I remember being a little girl and looking at Sesame Street and registering that all of the Muppets were male. You know, every single Muppet was male, and it was because they were all made by men. And it's a continuum that goes up through all of the audiences as they grow and change. And even where female-driven stories starring a female are front and centre, often these stories are written by men or directed by men, And I think we're allowed to have our own lens. You know, I believe we have something to contribute, and if we are going to allow differences, then let's allow differences and say, well, perhaps we have it's not an inherent difference, it's not a biological difference, but there is a difference of lived experience, and what can we bring to bear on the story? How can they be told in a new way? And how does that increase our opportunities as artists to build empathy in communities?
So how are you addressing that? Because I know you've started to do something about it in a practical way.
Yes, well, a group of girlfriends of similar age and ferocity have created a new not-for-profit. It's called OAR, the Arts Women Entertainment Alliance, and our mission is to support each other as female creators. You know, that sounds like a fabulous idea, and you know, I look forward to supporting that idea in all the ways in which I'm able. And we've extended that invitation to the wider community of creatives in Melbourne. We've pulled them together for a day of brainstorming and thinking about how we can best support each other, and we intend to keep drawing this community of women together and supporting us until we have a dedicated forum and infrastructure that will support female-driven storytelling across a whole range of disciplines.
And how do you hope that will happen?
Cooperation and collaboration.
Yep.
And you know, I guess at some point we'll probably be looking for some philanthropy or government funding, but essentially what we need is a great business plan, and to ensure the cross-fertilisation of a creative department with sufficient administration to make sure that this can happen.
So you're hoping to set this up as a going concern,
yes,
with some employees to be able, or an employee to be able to hold it together and enable and facilitate communication and work between the members. Is that
what OAR is envisioning? Is that there will be a female-driven support theatre making in a dedicated venue across a wide range of disciplines that has a quota established for females, and that is biased, at least in its formative stages, towards female-driven storytelling.
It's a good time to be doing that, I think. We're starting to see some high-profile women around the world developing this sort of concept. So the thing that's in my mind is the Nicole Kidman and Reese Witherspoon production company, and they are specifically looking at stories for women of their age. And I think what you're doing with OAR as a group is settling down that same sort of path of saying women can tell their own stories. We do have stories that are worth listening to, and it's time to be telling them.
I think that's true. And I think we're sort of, you know, given that there sort of seems to be a glass story ceiling, I feel that it is probably time to take matters into our own hands. And there needs to be some sort of forum where we develop the skills and confidence to sell tickets at least to each other. At least to each other.
That's a lovely place to end, I think. Thank you very much, Teresa. It's been a delight talking to you. I've been with Teresa Borg. Thank you for watching Tete a Tete.